Everyone is invited to come over, share a meal, share some stories and remembrances. We're going to begin this morning with Patrick. He is going to share some memories of his father with us this morning.
Just in case anybody's confused, they did not name all four of us Patrick, but this is my moral support. And I am Patrick Jeter. I'm the third of Tom and Maureen's four sons. Some people thought they stopped having kids after four because they thought they'd have 5 boys, but they actually stopped after 4 because they were told that if they had more kids, it would kind of endanger my mother's health. But I think otherwise they would have kept going because there was always room for one more at our house. I also want to start today by just thanking everybody who came here today to give respects to my dad, because I know that he would appreciate it very much. We've received daily cards and flowers and food and offers of support that's just really been humbling. We appreciate all of that, and we want to say thank you, and thank you for coming. We're glad that you're all here. We want to give our dad a good send-off, and he deserves it, so thank you for coming. So, my dad was born in Refugio, Texas on December 11th, 1938. His father was the county judge of Refugio County, and his grandfather was the town mayor. His family had a cattle ranch a few miles outside of town. The Mission River ran right behind their house, and if you followed the Mission River, it would take you out to their ranch. My dad liked to tell us that the ranch was called the Calaboose because calaboose is Spanish for jail or prison, and around their ranch, the Mission River kind of split just north of the ranch and came back together just south of the ranch, so they had a natural border around their cattle ranch, and they called it the Calaboose because the river was keeping the cows in place. My dad grew up in Refugio, Texas. He attended Catholic school. He was an altar boy. He was a Boy Scout. He progressed through the Boy Scouts to eventually earn the level of Eagle Scout status, and he was very proud of that his entire life. He was very much a Boy Scout and an Eagle Scout his entire life. Pattern of determination to do his best, to give his all, continued throughout his life. The Calaboose didn't pen him in. He loved being out on the ranch with his friends, riding horses, hunting deer, playing cards, and drinking beer. In many ways, he continued with those activities for most of his life. He had bigger challenges to chase, though, and so he went on to University of Texas in Austin. He graduated undergrad and went straight into law school. He was the first person in his family to graduate from college. In later years, he was a loyal supporter of UT's sports teams, all of their sports teams, any of their sports teams. And their victories always occasioned a retiring to the back porch with a scotch on the rocks and a cigar to salute the team. Oh, okay. Yeah, good deal. He loved being a lawyer. It was a big part of his life. It was a big part of his identity. He really appreciated and oftentimes commented on how fortunate he was in the career that he was able to have with the Air Force and the adventures that it allowed him to go on and the people it allowed him to meet. I think the Air Force benefited greatly from him being there. He had a profound influence on the practice of law and the making of contracts in the Air Force. So he left his mark, definitely, and he also left his mark in a lot of cadets who wanted to become JAGs themselves. And a couple years ago, they came together and had quite a nice party for him to say thank you. He had a tendency to affect people in a very profound way because he cared about people that he met. He cared about people that he knew. And if he knew you, he cared about you. So if you're here and he knew you, then he cared about you. At UT, he met the love of his life. They dated, they broke up, they got back together, and they eventually got married and had 4 children. Their 4 children had 9 grandchildren, and he eventually had 10 great-grandchildren. He and my mother were excellent parents, excellent partners, and genuinely good friends. Growing up, our friends were always welcome at our house. Everybody was always welcome at our house. My parents had several of our friends live with them for various reasons, for various periods of time. My cousin Jackie stayed with them while she was doing her internship. Both of their mothers lived with my parents the last years of their lives, and my mom's mom lived with them for 21 years, I think. The door was always open, and people were always welcome. There was always room at the table. My parents also welcomed a lot of cadets into our home. My dad loved teaching at the Air Force, and over the years that they acted as host families for various cadets. Most recently, in 2017, good friends of our family, the Chalawas, their daughter was going to be attending the academy, and so they volunteered to be a host family for the Chalawas. And shortly after agreeing to do that, the academy called and wanted to know if they'd be willing to take on one more, and my parents answered the way they always do. Of course, well, there's room for one more. Over the next year, I think 2 grew to 3, grew to 4. Eventually, there was I think as many as 5 cadets sometimes hanging out at the house, and my parents loved every minute of it, and my dad loved every minute of it, because he could sit out on the back porch and have a scotch and a cigar and give advice and guidance, and it was something that he genuinely loved to do. Something else he genuinely loved to do was give directions. If you ever came by the house, he would give you directions to anywhere. Even after the advent of phones that could take you anywhere on the planet, my dad wanted to give you very detailed directions on how to get someplace you may have been many, many times. And he enjoyed that. He would give you 2 routes usually. There was the quick route, if you were in a hurry, but he also would give you a route that was the scenic route. If you go this way, you're going to have an amazing view. My dad, in his entire life, loved amazing views. My parents built their home here in Colorado Springs with an amazing view of Pikes Peak. Almost every day that they lived there, they were on the back porch at some point during the day, enjoying the view and enjoying the company of each other. My parents loved to go on long trips together in the car. I think some couples that might cause them to break up, but they really enjoyed each other's company. They enjoyed spending time together. They enjoyed talking and laughing and talking about us and talking about all you guys. And they just had such a good time together their entire lives. We have hundreds of pictures of my parents together holding a drink and toasting whoever's taking the picture. And it's a memory or an image that sticks in my mind all the time. The 2 of them together, smiling and wishing you well. My parents loved the house that they built 30 years ago with this beautiful view of Pikes Peak. My dad loved the beautiful view, and he loved playing euchre, and he loved having a good drink, and he loved spending time with people and talking. Euchre is a card game that my brother John introduced to the whole family. It's sort of like spades. It's sort of addictive a little bit. And my dad would play spades until the wee hours of the morning if anybody would stay up and play with him. And in spades, if your team is 1 point away from winning, it's called barn door. And my dad was kind of infamous for making a barn door sound, or his rendition of a barn door sound when his team was close to barn door. It was kind of like fingernails on a chalkboard combined with a couple other sounds, and he would make that sound with great glee when his team was about to, kick your butt. But we all kind of enjoyed it, and we always looked forward to it. So, my parents Also loved playing bridge. They played a lot of bridge. They liked having people over to the house to play bridge, and they did that, up until very recently. They liked having people over at the house. They liked having you over at the house. If you were at the house, my dad was very concerned that you should have a drink and that you should have the drink that you wanted. So if you were coming, he was going to find out well ahead of time if you wanted scotch, or if you wanted gin, if you wanted beer. And if you didn't drink, he wanted to know what kind of alcohol or unalcoholic drink that you wanted, and he wanted to make sure that he had the right brand. And he was very accommodating and wanted you to feel welcome and wanted you to feel taken care of, and that meant a lot to him. My dad loved a lot of things. I think what he loved most, though, was mentoring and advising. He would give his time and attention to almost anybody who had a question, a legal question, a question about almost anything. He would research and research to make sure that he was doing a good job to give you a good answer. He also loved taking people on car tours of Colorado Springs. Like, if you've ever been in a car tour with my dad, it's the best tour in town. And he just enjoyed it a lot. He enjoyed accommodating people. He enjoyed helping people. He was a good guy to have as a dad, because he was always there if you needed help. It was my dad, if my dad and my mom knew you, they cared about you and you were welcome. We moved many, many times over the years, but it didn't matter what house we lived in, because every house we lived in had the same door. It was a door that was always open, where you were always welcome. Help and support was always available, and you never had to ask. My dad was a devout Christian. He was an altar boy when he was younger. We went to church every Sunday, with maybe a handful that I can remember of times that we didn't go for some reason, but we were always at church on Sunday. He also valued respecting your parents. He modeled that well in the respect he had of his parents. We all said, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. And that was just part of how things were in our house. I think him being a general, people might imagine that he was very strict, and we definitely had rules, and we definitely did what we were supposed to do, and we definitely were respectful to our mother, because I wasn't once, and I found out quickly that that was not happening again. He was very clear about those things, but those are things that are good to know and good to learn. The one thing is, though, that even though he was a general, it wasn't his way or the highway. Like, when we, growing up in their home, he had rules, and if he said no to something, one really nice thing about having a lawyer for a dad is that if you had a good argument for why you wanted to do whatever it was you wanted to do, and you could defend your argument well, he respected that, and he would bend to that. You did have to make a good argument, but if you could do it, well, okay, then you can do that then. It was, my parents very much shared the reins. I think from a distance, it might have looked like he was the boss all the time, but they very much shared the reins, and he listened to a lot of what my mom had to say, and they were a very good partnership, very good friends. Our family is heartbroken at his loss. In later years, he loved being referred to and referred to himself as the pater familias. And he very much was, and he very much is. It would mean so much to him, and it means the world to us to have you all here. Thank you for coming. We love you all.